Hi, my name is Tracy Speer, and Tracy and I have been married for 18 years.
Mostly. My husband is a Bigfoot enthusiast. He's kind of crazy about Bigfoot.
What is Bigfoot?
A big hairy monster. Big hairy man.
Flesh and blood ape?
Lives in the woods.
Wild man?
Stinky.
My wife is not a fan of Bigfoot or the phenomenon.
Bigfoot is not something that I gave very much thought to.
She is a really supportive wife and encourages my hobby, my passion of looking for Bigfoot.
He loves Bigfoot. Most husbands grill, camp, do things, yard work, bike rides, Memorial Day weekend. My husband, hiking and looking for Bigfoot. I noticed my husband was into Bigfoot when, I can't remember if it was prior to us being married or after. It may have been alluded to before we were married, but I don't think it really came to fruition until after we were married. Did I care about it? Not so much.
I really wasn't embarrassed thinking about how Tracy would act towards my Bigfoot hobby.
I probably giggled a little, or a lot privately. Does Justin need intervention? Probably, but not about Bigfoot. Does it ever get to be too much? Occasionally, but not too much, no.
Now, are you being serious? It seriously gets to be too much?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Have you seen the Bigfoot cast that you've
never
out?
said anything before.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like we're on the Jerry Springer show.
Have you seen the Bigfoot cast?
I love that cast.
Yeah, but it's not the only one. It's one thing to have one Bigfoot cast. It's an entirely other thing to have.
Well, they're all unique in their own special way.
Okay. Yeah, so there you go. So we went up to visit my parents for the weekend. They live in Ocean Shores, Washington, and we had decided for a day hike near Lake Quinault. We did the Arley Lake hike, and that's when I discovered that there may be something to this Bigfoot stuff. So during this hike, I didn't feel any kind of we're being watched or uncomfortableness, uneasiness. Nothing out of the ordinary by any means.
I didn't hear the voices, but later on, Tracy said that they heard chattering, but we never came upon any other hikers.
Did you hear that? I hear something. There weren't any other cars in the parking lot, so we hadn't made that connection, but we were just waiting for these other people to come walking down the path. I think it's a 2-mile-ish hike one way, and we were somewhere between halfway and almost there when we heard the voices.
In fact, there were no cars at the trailhead before and after, when we were leaving there and when we arrived.
I did hear what I thought was people coming towards us, talking. That's literally what it sounded like.
After the chattering, we came upon a footprint perpendicular, crossing the path, just one single footprint. And initially, my mind went to, okay, this is a human print. Even though I was interested in Bigfoot, I didn't think it was a Bigfoot print. And we continued on our hike. But on the way back, I took a closer look at the footprint and realized, I measured it, it was 14 inches long, which is extremely large for a human print. And that's when I took some closer pictures of it, and it got me thinking. And in hindsight, I really wish I had had some casting material to make an imprint of that footprint. That's probably my biggest regret right now. So now when I go hiking, I'm always looking for another print, but I've never found anything. But for some reason, I never heard any of the Bigfoot chatter, and I really wish I had.
Honestly, it sounded like just people were talking, where it was far enough away where I couldn't understand them, but close enough where I could hear them. I don't know that I could imitate it. Didn't feel any uneasiness, but never came across those people. We did see what he thought was a Bigfoot print, and also we saw some little footprints that, to me, they were child size, like a child size, I don't know, like this maybe. And I remember looking at those and thinking, what kind of parent is going to let their children walk on these paths barefooted? But again, later I didn't think anything of it. And we were on our way home, and it was back to, everyday living, and Justin and his Bigfoot enthusiast, and here we go with life. A few years later, we went up to Washington to Longview to, apparently there's annual Bigfoot conferences, really? Yeah.
This was her very first Bigfoot conference. I can't even remember how I convinced her to go.
My husband likes Bigfoot. I'm here along for the ride. There was a guy speaking, a Bigfoot researcher.
Anyway, I hope you like this. I do have some different sounds that I have never played in public before.
We're sitting in this conference, and he plays this tape of sounds of Bigfoot. And I remember hearing those sounds and the hairs on the back of my neck standing up and chills, and even now just talking about it.
I don't even think she was paying attention. She was always looking down at her phone. But when she was in the presentation by Ron Moorhead, where he played some of the audio recordings that he captured from the Sierras.
I never got to get a glimpse of one, but he got some really good recordings, and some of those is what you're hearing tonight.
She just grabbed my arm and she got goosebumps, and she said, "Justin, that's exactly the type of chatter that I heard on the hike on Irely Trail a couple years ago."
It was those same sounds. I elbowed Justin and I'm like, that's what I heard on that hike at Irely Lake. That was just that little spot.
That's what you heard?
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah, I don't think there was somebody in the woods trying to prank us. There was something out there making those sounds. But the sound, as much as these samurai ones, it sounds like you said, the Japanese, that's not what I heard. What I heard was not high-pitched, but like female tone of voices talking. That's what it sounded like to me. It wasn't something normal, but then I never saw the people. That's where the disconnect is, I guess.
Knowing that my wife now has possibly had a Bigfoot encounter, it definitely gives me hope. With her skepticism and religious background and not really believing in Bigfoot before, it's kind of cool to see her bring one foot across the line and to possibly, believing in Bigfoot now.
Who would have thought Bigfoot even had a language, could talk? I guess I assumed they would make noises like dogs or, any kind of other animal, but I wouldn't have thought by any means it would be a chattering that almost sounded human. I would say I'm still somewhat of a skeptic. Certainly not what I used to be.
I think she's a little more of a believer now.
I'm a lot more open to it now, I would say.
She still likes poking fun at the hobby.